The media is failing you and your government is lying to you.
Renee Good was murdered by ICE. In other words, Renee Good was murdered by the Trump administration this week in Minneapolis, just blocks away from the George Floyd memorial site. 5 years later, and it's just worse.
Chills just listening to you say that. This
Yeah.
week in 4K, we watched a white woman get murdered in broad daylight on a Tuesday morning, being shot in the face by the federal government.
Yes. An agent of the federal government. And
And
there's just so many ands, right? I mean, first of all, every single camera angle that was released, including the officer who murdered her, each clip is more damning than the next. They had the nerve to immediately, Kristi Noem, JD Vance, Donald Trump, the entire Trump administration immediately called her a domestic terrorist.
more so than that, they lied about what happened. So I think we should show them this Kristi Noem clip.
Stands, and if people don't like it, these members of Congress and elected officials should go change the law and make sure they have that debate and policy.
I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked if they're being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual and these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground.
She is straight up lying. These officers were not stuck in the snow. This woman was following directions and commands, conflicting directions and demands. One is telling her to stay there. One is telling her to move. But Kristi Noem sat there on national television on multiple shows, which kudos to the few journalists who actually condemned what she was saying and pushed back, like Jake Tapper. I'm not one to give this man credit, but
Yeah,
he
he did a
definitely
good job.
pushed back on her narrative. They immediately went to propaganda and lying on the internet. For the first time, and as a history teacher, you can tell us Black and brown people have been terrorized since the beginning of time in the United
Yes, the
States.
beginning of the inception of this country, right?
But I think for the first time, a lot more people have woken up to what's happened because it was a white woman.
Yes.
And there was a Black man that was killed in Los Angeles by an off-duty ICE officer this week as well. But I think this moment is different because we're witnessing the people that say, protect the mothers, and all of this stuff about protecting women from being murdered by the criminals. A mother was murdered in broad daylight by the government.
Yeah.
And I finally think white people are starting to wake up to the fact that this is going to happen to all of us. And this was never about immigration to begin with.
It never was, right? It
No.
was always just the Trump administration creating their own Gestapo. The training for ICE agents I learned today at an anti-ICE march is get ready to get really ill. 47 days in honor of the 47th president.
It's no wonder
47
that we have these randoms with no training pointing guns, loaded guns in the faces of U.S. citizens. This is not an isolated incident. There's video after video. These trigger-happy people want to just hunt anyone that does not agree with their ideology, but they don't even have an ideology.
No.
The same people
What's
that
their
were trying
ideology?
to get the hundreds of Americans fired for not mourning the death of Charlie Kirk and uplifting this widow, where is that energy for another widow whose wife was killed by your guys? Like, it is just,
They don't.
it's not about politics. It's not about racism even, which, yes, these are like the roots of this thing. It is about pure disdain for anyone that is different and trying to cleanse the country.
Yeah, it's anyone who disagrees with their white supremacist vision of what this country should be. And in
because
fact, white
killing a
people,
white woman doesn't matter either. to
well, it
them.
pisses them off that white people are getting in their way. And I remember 5 years ago when we were having a national conversation about systemic racism, there was a lot of conversation about, two things, which is that it's your job as a white person to educate yourself about systemic systems of racism in America. It's not the job of Black and brown people. They've dealt with it enough. Educate yourself. And then another one was the best way to protect the Black and brown community is to use your whiteness to protect them, right? So if you see a police situation with a person of color and you're white, just stand there and observe, stand there and film, right? So the origins of this kind of white awakening of sorts, the one that they don't want, was realizing and understanding and learning about the systems of racism, and then also learning about your power as a white woman to stand there to just, document. And so fast forward 5 years later, it's just like, you can't make this shit up, that 5 years later, after George Floyd, pretty much, it's been 5 years after that supposed national reckoning with this stuff, a white woman is practicing what she probably learned 5 years ago, if not earlier. She was in that space earlier, getting murdered steps, a walking distance, I believe, away from that memorial, which represents so much to everyone.
I think it's important to note as well. We're being told that this is about immigration. It's about taking immigrant criminals off of the streets. But it's very alarming, and I think liberal women as a whole, all ethnicities, it doesn't matter if you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, we have to be aware that there is a lot of video evidence of them abducting white women. There's a video that we like to show here. This is very clearly a white woman who is yelling out that she's a citizen. There are other citizens saying she's a citizen, and numerous men are trying to drag her into a car. She's fighting for her life, and I want to know where she is and what happened to her. But we all need to be aware that this is not just about our Black and brown communities. This is about everyone. They're eventually coming for everyone.
Yes.
And I want to send a message to Congress as well. What makes you think that they will not come for you? We lost Melissa Hortman just a
Yeah.
few months ago due
Yeah.
to political violence.
Yeah.
And we have these right-wing Christian nationalists. I saw this guy on a podcast 2 days ago saying that Tim Walz should be taken to DC for trials, and then they should hang him at the Capitol. So we want to hang Tim Walz because you sent white supremacist goons into the state to murder citizens. We are way past civility. We are past thoughts and prayers. We are past, let's write a bill to save this. I want to know what our Constitution is for. I want to know what the fuck our military is for, because we've always been told that the Constitution is set up to protect us from anything like this ever happening.
No.
And we have people being shot in the face in the street. So I'm just starting to get really frustrated with our elected officials on both sides for not doing more.
Yeah, I agree. I was just teaching, and I did a post about this. We can link to the thread about, and during the Reconstruction era, the only reason it ended up working in terms of like protecting Black people for a couple of years was essentially the Congress. The radical Republicans back then were the progressive Democrats of today. And when they took Congress over in 1867, they refused to swear in any of the former Confederate traitors who'd been reelected into their seats. So that way they were able to have a majority and put the South under military control. They've divided the South into 5 military zones. Each zone had to agree to the 14th and 15th Amendment, swear their loyalty to the country, condemning, agreeing that they lost and they're loyal to the Union again, and a number of other things. And that was the only way that those Southern states could come back into the Union. And guess what? It worked. It was like 80% or higher participation of Black people in the South. And we had the record number of elected officials on the federal and local and state levels. People were walking the equivalent of a marathon to go to meetings to discuss the politics and laws and all that kind of stuff. And the only reason why it ended was that in 1876, they compromised on an election. The South was like, we'll give it to your guy if you take the troops out of the South. And that was the beginning of Jim Crow, segregation as we know it. And so there was like this brief window of time where the federal government were gangsta, and they were like, fuck this. Y'all just fought a civil war and where there was led to all this death. You're sure as hell not going to get sworn into Congress, right? And I know obviously someone in my comments said, oh, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same, but there were levers when Biden was president to make it so that Donald Trump could never run for office again. And the way that Merrick Garland and others dragged their feet made it so that Trump was able to run out the clock. And you're watching Jack Smith last week basically saying with all the evidence he had that Trump 100% was 100% responsible for instigating that insurrection, that failed coup against the US government. And watching that and then having, what is it, a 5-year anniversary? And then the day after the 5-year anniversary, I shot a woman in the face.
I can't take anyone serious right now who is saying things like, just wait till the midterms. Guys, when we get to the midterms, there isn't going to be another free and fair election again. We've been past a constitutional crisis. Think of just all of the things that happened in 1 week. The first week of 2026, we invaded Venezuela. He has threatened to bomb Mexico. He's threatening to go into Greenland next just simply because he wants it. We have Americans getting shot in the face. And it's like, if you think we're going to make it to the midterms, like, excuse me, I can't take any of that seriously.
No.
We're
Yeah, Elon Musk is awfully quiet, and you know what he did in the other one. So, allegedly. So basically here we are. What is it? January 11th, 2025. I was at an ICE protest, not pro. I don't stand with ICE. I've seen those pictures, those stupid posts everywhere. I stand with ICE. Like, oh, you stand with people shooting people in the face? Now I know who to unfollow. But, I went to a protest today. We marched from like 60th down Fifth Avenue to past Trump's residence, New York residence, to Times Square. I think it was tens of thousands of people across the country. That's going on. I turned to my friend and I was like, we've been doing this for a decade. I've been out in the streets for a decade now protesting this guy. And it's exhausting. Like, did I want to spend my Sunday doing that? No. Is it going to change anything? No, but at least we're exercising our freedoms that people in other countries can't even do anymore. So
I
there's
think
that.
more than anything, maybe we might not feel that it is physically doing something in this moment, but for me, when I go to a protest, it reminds me that I'm not alone in this and that there are this many other sane people around me who disagree with what's happening. And I guess at the end of the day, that not everyone is bad. Like, I think that's what I took away from protests. But I do kind of think that this moment is going to change the course of the future of their power because the severity of it's going to be any one of us is changing how the public is reacting to this. And I also want to say to everyone, it is not normal for us to be seeing our neighbors get murdered from 5 different angles and thousands of videos. And yes, it is so important to share them. But if you need to step away from it, like that's okay. Like if you're not okay during this time, that's okay. And honestly, I'm looking a little bit sideways at people who are able to go on and maintain their day-to-day operations right now while this is happening, but I just want them to know as well. I personally may come off as this tough person on the internet, but this is heavily affecting me emotionally, and I know it's affecting you guys as well. And that's a normal reaction to like the horror that we're witnessing.
Yeah, and having to just take a step back, I will say that this show will air in a couple days. The Golden Globes are tonight, and like that contrast of, everyone dressed up to the nines and walking the red carpet, getting awards. My one hope for tonight is that a number of celebrities, there's some that we know will speak out, but others will use their platform. This is the time to speak out. We keep saying that, but like, this is not, I mean, yes, things need to go on. Golden Globes were scheduled. They can't cancel everything, but my one wish for tonight is that people with millions and millions of followers use their platform to raise some awareness from, some people who don't pay attention to the news.
Yeah. Take care of yourself and yours. We'll be back next week with another episode.